5 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to note that this meeting is in person, is being recorded. I would also let you know that Terry Ham is in this meeting remotely. I don't know if it's a Zoom. Is it Zoom?
Yeah.
Zoom, okay.
Yes, it's Zumba.
For the purposes of the minutes, Will Balls is not here. Carrie Parsons is not here. And who else is not here? Oh, John Sousa is not here. So,
Do a roll call.
yeah, I have to do roll call for every vote because of Terry not being here. So we do have a quorum. And based on that, I'd like to invite Mark up, representing Conservation, to come to the theater. Come up to the mic right there. All right, yep. And introduce yourself.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Finance Committee, my name is Mark Garrett. I'm the Environmental Affairs Coordinator for the town of Plymouth, the town of Dartmouth, excuse me. Sorry. And just to clarify that title, I am the Senior Technical Conservation Person advising the Conservation Commission and handling the day-to-day business of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
I mean, I can, go through a presentation here. I'm prepared to speak on anything you want to speak. I submitted the FinCom presentation to the treasurer, and basically that mission statement that we've written we really didn't have a mission statement written and prepared, so I crafted that from old notes, a little bit of the history of what the Conservation Commission first was doing and how that has evolved to present day, not necessarily by choice, but by legislative mandates from the Commonwealth. Originally, Conservation Commissions were voluntary organizations appointed to preserve and protect open space in all of the municipalities in the Commonwealth. Dartmouth was one of the earliest Conservation Commissions that was formed. But basically in 1972, their role was kind of redirected towards a regulatory role in that was when the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL 131, Section 40, was adopted and by the state, and the implementation of that act was handed over to the communities. So basically, volunteers who liked bugs and bunnies became regulatory people. And with that, a whole lot of responsibility because we're dealing with property, both public and private, legal, probate, and other rights granted to property, and all of a sudden they were confronted with regulating some of the most expensive investment any individual or any family or any group would have.
Why don't you, because one of the things this year is we're asking for mission statements, and you prepared one. Would you mind reading this? That way, anybody's watching on.
The actual mission
Well,
statement?
no, this paragraph right here, this first
Yeah, okay.
paragraph. That way, people at home know what your mission statement is.
I have no problem.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The mission statement of the Dartmouth Conservation Commission, this was actually voted on by the commission late last year when we were getting ready to prepare this presentation, and it reads, The original purpose of conservation commissions in Massachusetts was to act as an independent municipal open space protection agency with the ability to acquire and permanently protect open space. From 1961 through 1972, the Conservation Commission's primary role was spent analyzing open space and prioritizing acquisitions, coordinating open space activities with other governmental and non-governmental agencies, and performing other tasks related to the protection and enjoyment of open space. In 1972, the Conservation Commissions in Massachusetts were assigned the task of administering the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40. Further, the Dartmouth Wetlands Protection Bylaw was adopted by the town in 1980 and revised since to strengthen aspects of the Wetlands Protection Act for the protection of the town's natural resources. While open space protection remains an objective of the Conservation Commission and staff, it has significantly diminished as the regulatory and enforcement functions now dominate the Dartmouth Conservation Commission's mission today and are now what are most identified with by both the general public and other municipal agencies.
Okay. So, anybody got any questions on that? Oh, one other thing, Peter asked me to make sure that you speak into the microphone, because if you talk back
Yeah,
here,
the microphones are too
they
far
can't,
away.
you have to
put the
be here.
microphone up there.
So they're having some difficulties, so just make you aware of that. All right, so let's go into the review of the budget performance. And let's see here. So you have the Munis?
Yeah,
Munis
Mr.
report?
Chairman, can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
It'd probably be good, Marcus put this together in the format that the committee needed. I think it would be good if you read that, and then we go to maybe look at the schedule.
Okay.
Behind it, attached
Okay.
schedule. That way, so the people at home can
Okay, sure.
get a
okay.
sense.
Yeah. All right, so you want them to read the review of the budget?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, the review of prior year's budget performance. Based on the most recent FY 2025 budget reports, the Conservation Commission has been at or below budget relative to all accounts except for postage. Postage is tough to predict, as Conservation is required to send any UPS mailings of regulatory or legal significance via certified mail return receipt. This would include all enforcement mailings, and enforcement has increased and continues to increase at a rate of approximately 30% annually over the past 5 years. See budget analysis.
Okay.
Also, given our overall regulatory and enforcement workload and lack of staffing, Conservation has been unable to invest in the historical environmental opportunities as referenced in the mission statement, that referring to open space.
Okay, you don't have Munis up there, do you, the Munis part of this?
Yeah.
Can you bring that up, because I just want to... Okay. So the 2025 budget is 157,000, and year-to-date, you're at 89,548, and you're projecting basically to come in at budget. And let's see here. Okay, I mean, there's, I don't think there's anything significant here. Okay, so,
Except for some of the percent increases, which seem high.
I think that was the typo we talked about last time. It was something I had input wrong, incorrectly.
Well, the increases you're seeing is
we're looking at
gasoline and
actual.
postage.
yeah,
Postage, he's increased to, 2,000, and then gasoline, he's, now, because Mark has a vehicle now, a town vehicle that was purchased with capital money. I believe
Yeah.
back, was it the springtown meeting, I believe? Fall
No, it was a fall
Fall
town
town meeting,
meeting.
right.
Fall of 2024, the money was allocated.
Yeah,
The truck was finally purchased in December of 2024. It was received the first week of January 2025.
Yeah. So we're still talking about actuals. So based on Munis, you're saying that you're going to come in at the 157 number. Okay. So let's get to the new budget, because that's, because it looks like you're looking for another person, right?
Yes.
Okay, so,
You want me to read that budget summary?
yeah, I think, yeah, because that way the public sees
Yep.
what we're seeing, and then you can talk a little bit more about it if you'd like to, okay?
Okay, new budget year summary. I will be making the same arguments for staff additions that I have made over the past 4+ years as my predecessor had made over 32 years and previous occupants of my position have made over time. As I prepare my 2026 budget, I must reiterate that the conservation staff needs an additional level of full-time dedicated administrative support. I cannot abandon what is the critical need acknowledged by all who know what we do, but has gone largely unheard and ignored by past administrators over the past many years. This in no way suggests that the limited hours of support provided by Michelle Vieira provides to us on a weekly basis is not welcome or appreciated, but her workload and other responsibilities to other departments limit her availabilities to address many of the administrative demands required by conservation, and staff understands this. The implementation of Viewpoint has proven to be beneficial in many ways, but it, however, has also added several administrative burdens, taking time away from the staff's primary technical responsibilities. All of this is coupled with the more complex regulations being imposed by the state and increased enforcement, a generational turnover to inexperienced young pool of employees and professionals, many more complex projects with significant legal issues and requirements, and lastly, an overly needy public when it comes to environmental issues and their property, now requires additional and significant expenditure of staff time. Everyone supports environmental protection until it gets in their way, then not so much. In addition, when this department head has had 4 subordinate associates in the same position over the past 5 consecutive years, said department head is in constant training mode, leading to little benefit to the department or the town's investment in same. Lack of retention appears to be less about staff relationships and more about subordinate frustrations regarding the extent of in-house administration work relegated to predominantly field-trained personnel
Presented
in the conservation officer job description. This is an old story that precedes my coming on board and in recent times has been exacerbated by the administrative requirements of Viewpoint and has largely been ignored based on the assumption that technology can replace administrative support. Technology may make the job easier in some cases, but someone knowledgeable in and dedicated to the technology has to administer it at the staff level to make it work for and with the general public. While I understand level funding, fiscal responsibility, staff efficiency, and while conservation is a small department that meets its budget annually, that does not preclude the specific staffing needed to meet the mandatory regulatory and related legal responsibilities to this department. We are thus required to be fiscally constrained, yet efficient in performing the regulatory and legal responsibilities under both the state and local mandates. Aside from the normal expense increases to keep pace with inflation costs due to work and based on the aforementioned comments above, I'm making the ardent request for a dedicated full-time administrative assistant at a pay rate of, I picked the number $50,000 per year. I figured that was probably a good estimate. While not level funding, I believe that this be justified based on the ever-increasing workload and the recent correspondence dated September 17th, 2024, from the Chairman of the Conservation Commission, Mr. Michael Kehoe, to the Chairman of the Select Board, Mr. Sean McDonald, that reads, the events of last week, further staff loss, bring home a long-standing and fundamental problem. The departments serving our town, particularly the Conservation Office, are understaffed. I realize that every municipality is looking at its bottom line, constantly tries to reduce expenses. Dartmouth is no different. But there is a difference between cutting the fat and cutting to the bone, and these cuts undercut the town's ability to provide timely professional service to its residents and the stress and negative impact on employee morale. When I first became a conservation commissioner about 20 years ago, we had an environmental affairs coordinator, an assistant, and a dedicated administrative assistant. Since then, we lost one person to retirement, never fully recovered, and our previous environmental affairs coordinator has since retired. Complained about this problem to no avail, unquote. He continued, quote, with as much work as ever, it is unrealistic and unconscionable to expect one or two people to do the job of three from past observations. Shared personnel, no matter how competent and willing, is only a temporary solution due to the unique jargon, requirements, and procedures of the Conservation Commission. Dedicated staff is a must.
Okay, just stop right there.
Yep.
Could you explain what Viewpoint is and when it was implemented and how it's impacted your department?
Viewpoint is a technological package that we have here at the town. We purchased it through, I believe the company is Open Government that provides it. And it is a very generic electronic platform in which various boards of the town, and it may have more potential than that, but that's the end I use, provides for an electronic processing of filings, permit applications, payments of fees, and the like. Dartmouth implemented this in 2018, I'm sorry, 2020, 2021?
2018, 2019.
2019.
Yeah.
A little outdated.
And it was used primarily by the building department, and their system, their permitting system works pretty smoothly with it. However, it was not adopted by all the departments until later. We adopted it in November of 2022, I think, 2022.
Okay, so it's not, Viewpoint isn't something specific to your industry. It's a town thing.
It's a town thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
What it did was
Okay.
it tried to get departments off the paper,
Paper, yeah.
yeah, and get them.
Okay.
get
No,
them
I
electronic.
didn't know if it was something.
Not specific to conservation.
Specific to conservation and the state and stuff like that. Okay,
But the previous town administrator mandated that we get on it.
okay.
And while I see the benefit of being on it, the FinCom and the former town administrator and the government, everybody in general, my predecessor had developed an electronic system. We were pretty much off paper as best we could. However, the state mandates, because we're dealing in property, that we have to maintain paper copies of just about everything we do of a legal or regulatory nature. I can tell you right now, I have just under 2 rooms of file cabinets with files and that's not counting what's in the vault, of property filings, some of which are spot on. They've done, the applicants have done everything and fulfilled their responsibilities. Many of them they don't. We get calls. I have one file that I have to issue separate certificates of compliance on that predates the Wetlands Protection Act. These permits were issued by the state, and we have to issue certificates because many people And a lot of developers skip town and never closed out permits. So somebody buys, and an example would be a developer has a large tract of land, let's say 100 acres, subdivides it into 70 buildable lots, and has to build a road to give them frontage and access. And that road has wetland implications. So he files a permit on this map and singular lot. He then subdivides the lot into 100, so that singular lot becomes the lot number dash another number. That developer makes their money and they leave for Florida. Properties are purchased and sold. 2005, they weren't doing title research very well, and that spun us into a recession. Now they're doing it a lot more efficiently and more comprehensively.
Okay.
So we'll get a call from somebody who says, a realtor or a buyer or a seller, hey, we just found out that there's a encumbrance on the title due to an order of conditions. There are no wetlands around us. And we have to go back and find the subdivision and tell them that their lot number dash number was originally part of just a lot with no dash. So they are encumbered legally, but they're not encumbered necessarily by what's on the ground. But to clear their title, we have to issue certificates. So for one permit, we could have to issue 100 certificates individually, because one person applied for one lot. These people now are one of 100 subdivided lots out of that one lot.
So do you charge a fee for that?
Yeah, there's a fee, yeah.
There's a fee, okay. And that goes to the general,
Goes to the Conservation Fund.
Oh, it goes to the Conservation Fund?
Conservation has a fund. It was legislatively established by the Commonwealth. Any fees paid for permits go into that fund, and that fund is available to the Conservation Commission for further conservation uses.
Okay.
In Dartmouth's case, the Conservation Commission very rarely sees that money, because that money is used to pay salaries and things, portions of salaries. So.
Your department, in
In
your
our
department.
department.
Okay.
So that number, I can't tell you how much is in that number, because I never even get a report on that account. I have to ask for that periodically.
Okay, Janine?
That does sound very complicated, for sure, what you just went through. But my-
Thank you.
But my question is, do you keep track of those types of activities?
What types of activities?
The one you just described can't be happening 10 times a day, or is it?
What, are you talking about the subdivision?
Correct. I mean, I would like to
I don't
know.
track it. I mean, I know when subdivisions come in, but we don't track it. We have the files. We can tell you when it's done. We can go to a database and tell you when somebody requested something, but we haven't, to develop those metrics would be.
Well, it's a time issue, because you're saying how busy you are, but I don't see something that really specifies exactly how you're busy, other than broad categories.
Come on down to our office and watch us.
I think in the case of conservation, we track that data on a view permit. That's the beauty of having view
Yeah.
permit. We can
Okay.
see how many permits are issued and all that. But, in the case downstairs, a permit may not just be, you apply for it and it's out the door. It's applied for, and then there's multiple processes that have to go into that. And there's a lot of legal involved and so on and so forth. So unlike almost like a building permit, it goes through its steps in the process. So it's kind of hard to measure that. We'd have to say, okay, where is it along the way in this point, where is it along the way in that point? But we can tell you how many permits per year are issued by the Conservation Commission. But there is a variety of work that goes into that.
Okay, so John Souza's not here, so I want to ask the John Souza question. How do we know that the cost of these permits is being captured, that we're charging enough money to, for the amount of time? You know how John Souza's always saying, whatever we charge should be in line with the
I think
time.
John's questions were, are we charging the equitable amount of money that we would have to pay for a person in the office? I think if we looked at the revenues for conservation, we're probably undercharging with the staff that's down there. You know, Mark's salary, if you took Mark's salary, you took his assistant's salary, now we have a floater down there. We'd have to look at the revenues to see whether or not there was I'm not sure the last time the Conservation
2
Commission
years ago.
looked at fees.
2 years ago.
And how comparable they are to other communities.
We're fairly comparable and a little higher. I mean, that's the battle we have, you know, do you recoup the costs of effort and still be competitive with, you know, the other communities? Not that we're competing against them, we can stake whatever price we want, because we're just dealing with Dartmouth jurisdiction. However, you know, you try to be fair with these things, and we deal with engineers who work in numerous towns, and they can compare one to the other very easily, and they talk, you know, they've got their societies, and they talk, and, you know, so we try to be, you know, on an equal playing field with others. We are probably due to look at them, and I think later on in my write-up, I talk about revisiting them, because we've been at this particular level for 2 years, and we probably need to reevaluate
Yeah, they're
it.
probably below break even, I would say.
Okay.
I would say yes, I would say yes.
You know, I'm a little concerned that you don't have the information available to see what's in that account, because that money goes into a specific
It's
account.
about, I believe it's about 50,000 a year, 60,000 a year. And we use that to offset, as Mark said, salaries in the department.
Okay.
So that's all depending on how much we collect for the permits and fees that go through the office. You know, that could change year to year. So it's kind of.
One of the things that we have done is we impose a penalty, or for violation permits, where somebody has to come in and permit something that they did in violation of the law and correct as best they can the infraction. And we have a $1,000 fee that goes on top of our normal fee structure for that. And I would say that over as I said in what I just read, enforcement has gone up about 30% in the past 5 years. And that's been kind of a consistent.
Okay, Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, so the main thing you want in your budget is a dedicated support person.
That's the first thing, yes.
Okay, so, and that's because the number of permits are going up, and it's also more complicated to issue the permits? Or, so if I was to ask you, over a 3 or 4 year period, the number, I don't even know if this is the right metric, but is the number of permits you're issuing going up?
Slightly, not dramatically, but you see, how do I want to put this? A lot of people do not understand what conservation does. It's not an easy turnkey permitting, you know, local permitting thing. We live with a permit requirement from the state. We live with a permit requirement from the town under the bylaw, separate jurisdictions. As a matter of fact, we use Viewpoint here in Dartmouth. To file the very same permit online with the state, we have to go into another platform to file with them for compliance purposes. Those two platforms do not communicate. So we do the work in one platform, then we have to back ourselves out of that platform and go into another one. So we live in two worlds. A lot of what we do is you can't put it into any kind of metric. For example, I was writing a violation letter today, and somebody walks into my office, because I don't have a gatekeeper. I don't have anybody, they know where my office is, they come in, they stick their head in, and they interrupt me. Now, I'm writing something that has legal and regulatory ramifications, and I'm getting completely distracted to answer a legitimate question. I can't expect the people to be experts, but it takes me away from what I'm doing, and then I have to get myself back to that. I don't know how you define that in a metric, but it happens on a weekly basis. And what's happening in our world, especially at the state level. You've heard talk about water quality issues in town. There is a draft wetland regulations update that has been floating around. And these regulations are becoming more and more encompassing. So the number of permits could stay the same for 10 years, but the requirements for those permits to meet the requirements of the law have changed dramatically. So what may have taken you 5 hours last year may be taking you 15 to 20 hours this year. And so I don't want to sound like I'm whining here, but it's hard to predict because a lot of this is out of our hands. We're told what we have to do, or the town of Dartmouth ends up in court, and that's what we don't want to do.
So it would be fair to say that the number of permits is slightly increasing,
Yeah.
but the complications
Complications have
of
increased.
meeting state requirements and communicating back and forth with different
Mm-hmm.
systems, the workload has increased
Yes,
substantially.
and in reality, I mentioned this in what I read to you. We are in a time, there's a gap in technical proficiency. A lot of people are my age, getting close to retirement, and are retiring. And there's no infill behind them for that, like, middle level. There are young people coming out of college with marginal skills, great potential, but marginal skills. And that's for us in employing staff. That's also in the private sector, the consultants. And I talk to a bunch of consultants every week, and they all say the same thing. There's nobody there to end up doing the work, so it all ends up in one place, usually the senior person, which that wasn't the way 25 years ago. You could disseminate work to other people, and they would get most of it done, and then you'd review it. Now you're doing it. I mean, today I wrote 4 legal ads for a newspaper. For a department head, that's purely administrative work. Has to be done. If I don't do it, town is liable, so I do it because I have to. But I'm doing that, and I may not be worrying about helping Mr. Baker on CPC purchases because the state has changed how they're regulating purchases of CPC by towns. So, I mean, I only got so much time in a day. And the demands on the individuals are increasing, and Viewpoint, while, again, I say it has its benefit, does add administration to it, given the phone calls, the drop-in visits. We don't have a desk where somebody can say, can I help you? Oh, can I see Mr. Garrett? No, he's busy. Can I take your name? I'll have him call you back. They just come right into the office.
So how does not having that administrative staff affect you on a day-to-day basis? It takes you away from doing?
I probably, on a day-to-day basis, I'm jumping from a half dozen to a dozen things every day, and they're all unrelated, except they're all conservation related. But it could be enforcement, it could be answering a question, it could be showing somebody how to find information on Mass Mapper, which is the town GIS mapping system, to answer some of their questions. We had one person who recently is a trustee to an estate and wanted to know why her father's name was on a permit application. We don't know. They filed it and his signature was on it. And I can't tell you, but you know, we probably had about 4 or 5 phone calls from her. Finally, she resolved it because we told her how to resolve it, but that was 5 phone calls.
Okay. So I want to try to break this down. So, and I know you're talking about a raise here. So right now, Mark, you're the Environmental Affairs Coordinator. You have Eduardo Fortes, that's full-time conservation. And Michelle Vieira is somebody, it's a floater that comes in. So you're really looking to replace the floater?
No.
No.
Michelle Vieira has been with us. She gives us up to 5 hours a week, but it's really not 5 hours because she's got to split her time with other departments.
Okay.
So on an average, it's probably like 2.5 hours. She does certain specific things for me, like she gets our legal ads, once we write them, she gets them to the newspaper. She does some bookkeeping and accounting, some reporting requirements. She also does the attendance. The select board requires annual accounting of attendance to meetings by members. She does that. That's it.
Okay, so-
Then in addition to that,
Right.
there's the floater, which I have listed here as 17 and a half hours, which was what we were originally talking about. That really is 12 hours because the floater is taken on another department. So I see her for 12 hours, 3 mornings a week. And she is doing yeoman work. There's no doubt about it. But I have her on one project, which has to do with open space, because our open space files are a disaster because they haven't been managed for years preceding me.
All right, so right now you have 2 budgeted employees, that's yourself and Eduardo, and you're looking to add another person into the.
To replace the floater, yes.
Floater, to replace the floater, okay. Now, before you had this position, were you the conservation officer?
I was.
Okay. So, I'm not sure what your age is, but you had mentioned a retirement. Is Eduardo Fortes, would be something that if you retired, he would move up into the position, or?
Well, in theory, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and, so everybody clear on that? Why don't we talk about the grant opportunities, and then we'll talk about your personal inputs. Is that fair? Okay. Okay.
You want me to read the grant?
Yeah, why don't you read it, that way the people at home get to see what we're seeing.
Let's see. Okay, so cost reduction projects of the new budget year and future potential projects, it's not applicable at this time, so I didn't bother answering that question. Revenue generation opportunities of the new budget year and future potential projects. The Conservation Commission and staff can look at increasing filing fees as the current fee structure has been in place for approximately a year and a half as of the writing of this. That was a few months ago. However, this would represent a modest increase in revenues and would come at a time of economic uncertainty for all relative to the cost of living, to the general public, and the cost of doing business. It is an option, though, moving forward during the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Grant opportunities of the new budget year and future potential grant opportunities. A greater revenue stream would be actively applying for numerous environmentally based grants being sponsored by Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management, Buzzards Bay National Estuary Program, Southern New England Program, and Municipal Vulnerability Program, of which I got the town onto their approved list for grants. All state regional environmental agencies that offer grant opportunities at least twice a year. To date, I, as the Environmental Affairs Coordinator, do not have the time to develop a list of potential projects to be funded or to write any of the grant applications, nor do I have any authority to commit the town to any programs or strategic commitments. I can only recommend, which I currently provide. All I can do is forward grant opportunities to the third floor, Chris Vitale, for any initiative to be taken. To date, there has been some but limited active response to my notifications. In some cases, these environmentally based grants can include infrastructure improvements, especially those grant opportunities geared towards sea level rise and coastal resilience issues. When asked why did my predecessor succeed in obtaining grants previously, the answer is simple. First, he had qualified support staff that required limited training and could be left unattended to do the daily routine work of the department. But moreover, the town had a dedicated community development director who was responsible for project and grant opportunities, who could orchestrate the preparation and completion of qualifying grant applications and worked in close support with my predecessor. Currently, there is no one in town consistently performing that task as it was previously performed. I will note that as the assistant town manager, the assistant town administrator, and the interim town administrator, Chris Vitale is assigned that, but he's so flat out that he can't really address specific environmental opportunities. There is generally $1 to $2 million pool available annually for communities to apply for portions of those grant monies. In recent past, Dartmouth has not consistently taken advantage of these opportunities. There have been some limited awards, but generally not through the above-cited sources. And then future grant opportunities I had referenced above.
So Brian, you're the grant guy.
I'm the one that nags people about grants. So I get, what I'm hearing is that, well, if you got this extra person, administrative staff, I know the procedure now is to send grant opportunities to the assistant town administrator. But well, we know he's flat out, but so would it be a better system if you had more administrative support to you to write the grants, or you just don't have time for that?
I ran a company for 28 years. It was
Yeah.
my own company, an environmental consulting firm. I spent much of my time writing proposals. A grant application is a proposal. You know, different words, same thing. You have to sell your project, you have to sell yourself and your ability to do the work. Okay? I have no problem with doing that. Again, I go back to something I said earlier. A lot of people don't really understand what the Conservation Commission or the conservation staff do. Everybody has their view of what they think is conservation, but conservation has about 6 different definitions depending on who you're talking to and what position they're in. So yes, I could spend time writing grant applications if the town decides they want to go after something, as opposed to saddling Chris with it. It would give me more time to write a cogent technical response to the question being asked as it relates to environment, as it relates to infrastructure needs. In the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, stormwater, stormwater, stormwater. They want to clean it up. That's an environmental issue, it's a water quality issue, it's an infrastructure issue with sewer systems and things like that. Tim Barber and Paul Duarte and Paul Pacheco and myself, we have a great working relationship. We just don't, nobody is spearheading. You know, Deb Wender used to spearhead this stuff, and she used to be the clearinghouse. We don't really have the clearinghouse, and a lot of this stuff comes through my office, and all I can do is be the clearinghouse. And I don't like passing it on. There are projects that I love, that I would love to go after, and there's monies to be gained, but I just can't.
All right, I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions on grants? Okay, personal inputs. I want to try to limit this because almost everybody we've heard from has had negative things to say about the past administrator. And I'd like to talk about the future rather than the past. And, you know, at the end of this, you know, you talk about I hate to say it, the bottom line is you'd like $50,000 for a dedicated administrative assistant, and you're looking for $88,700 increase, which would bring you closer to your peers, I guess is coming a...
Let me just add, my peers in small departments. Okay, I understand the dichotomy of the departments, and there's DPW, there's school, those directors are going to make much more than a conservation department head or an environmental affairs coordinator. But given my level of experience, given I'm closing in on 10 years here, and I'm not the kind of person who is necessarily looking to retire. Okay, I'm a worker bee, and I think my record shows that. Okay, what I'm saying is I would like to be more compensated more competitively with my peers in the smaller size departments. And that's why I'm asking for the 10%. I think that's legitimate. And it went unheard. I mean, I've been asking for this for a while. Went unheard for years.
Yep.
I'm not going to get into bashing anybody, but
Okay.
it went unheard. And, you know, I will tell you, in the past 5 years, you would have had to have done something really creative in town to keep this conservation department intact. I have held it together. It's been a one-man show with the responsibility of 3 jobs. And it can get grueling. And the thing that I get very nervous about, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm not perfect, is I don't want to miss something that puts Dartmouth at liability risk. I mean, I look at Dartmouth as my client. I look at it as a consultant. I know I'm an employee, but you're my client, and I got to protect my client. And I'm being asked to do way too much, and I'm not, I should be getting paid better for what I'm doing.
Okay, so this is the budget process, but you have to,
I understand.
who do you report to directly? I mean, now you report
Right
to him.
now.
Right now.
My
okay.
contract is signed by the select board. I mean,
Okay,
that's-
the contract-
That's it. That's.
okay,
And the
okay.
reason I put this in here was I wanted to make it very public what my intentions are.
Mm-hmm.
I have not yet requested this through the official channels, but my feeling was that while it may not be specifically a budget issue,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to find out, you know, well, I'd like to do it, but we can't because it's not in the budget.
Yeah, no.
So I wanted to put that number out there. And again, my budget is not a big budget, you know, as compared to other budgets. And I would like to think that there might be a little room and frankly, a little reward for the work that the department has done, because we've done yeoman work.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing, and this is my suggestion, is you take a look at people who, your peers in other towns and compare that salary, because I think that's probably a better indication rather than internally in Dartmouth.
You would have to, how do I put this? Dartmouth, I have the privilege of living in town Plymouth, and I work in the town of Dartmouth. And I've done this for many years. And I have found that Plymouth and Dartmouth are a great point counterpoint. Now, I realize Plymouth is larger by population and larger by land area. And Plymouth has a specified downtown. But the towns are very, very equivalent in other ways. And as I've spent 30-plus years in politics in Plymouth, and I found, and I was a friend of Mike O'Reilly's for years, and I found it a great point counterpoint and a teaching mechanism for me to do my job in Plymouth as best I can by looking at what Dartmouth was doing. Okay, I will tell you that I created this position in Plymouth based on Mike O'Reilly, because we didn't have it. And I said, guys, you're talking about this, this is how it's done, and oh, here's the model. And they did it.
Okay. Well, that's just my suggestion.
No, I
Because I
understand.
know the the former town administrator, when he got his big increase, it was, this is what town administrators are making. And my suggestion to you is, rather than comparing it to other departments, you compare it to peers in other towns that are similar. That's just a suggestion.
This is based on that too.
Okay.
But I have not looked at all towns. I've looked at towns that I think are similar to Dartmouth.
Yeah.
I've looked at Barnstable, I've looked at Plymouth, I've looked at Dartmouth, I've looked at Middleborough. You know, big towns, big land area towns
land
with
areas, yeah.
with a lot of available land. Not necessarily developable, but a lot of land that is undeveloped. And, you know, I know what these people make, and I know how long they've been with their towns, and I think that what I'm asking, and I realize it's not necessarily for you to decide this, that's a discussion for something else, but I think that it would be wholly fair to fulfill my request.
Okay. So why don't you just read out your conclusion, and we'll see if there are any additional questions.
refer to the budget analysis sheet as I'm requesting an increased budget from $158,400 to a total of $219,000. I realize this budget submittal does not meet the level funding strategy. However, the budget submittal does meet the necessity of the department's responsibility to the town and to its residents. And I think that's it, isn't it?
Well, it says while,
There's one
Well,
more.
While this request is necessary based on past budget performances, I have no expectations as to any satisfaction, but it needs to be continually voiced. We continue to do what we can, as it is the staff's concern to minimize the town's legal exposure and in the environmental disciplines, especially when the issue of private property is involved.
okay. Anybody have any questions? Additional questions, or? Okay. Thank you very much. A very, very good presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. You all set? Okay, Council on Aging. Amy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening. Amy DePietro, Council on Aging.
Welcome. Okay, why don't you read your mission statement? The purpose of that is so that everybody in town will hear you say it.
Sure. The mission of the Dartmouth Council on Aging is to identify the needs of the community's population and the available resources, to educate the community at large in the needs of the aging adult, and to design, promote, and implement needed services and coordinate with existing services for our seniors, to maintain independence in their own lifestyle and provide the support needed so that they may remain contributing members of the community as long as possible.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about your review of the prior year's budget performance.
Sure. Do you want me to verbatim or just,
Yeah, kind of,
okay,
yeah, that way.
Okay.
I'm just, we're asking people to do this, not only for ourselves, but for people at home.
the public, sure. Okay, so our FY25 projection for salaries is $317,826, which aligns with the appropriated budget. It's anticipated that expenses will land at or under budget for the fiscal year. This will be determined by the cost of utilities and the price of gas.
Okay, so you think without the utilities, you're going to be under budget?
I actually, with utilities included, we will be under budget.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you'll
Okay.
note in my operational expenses, we've actually reduced our electric and gas line item, which I know is probably shocking and contentious.
Yeah.
I just want to note on that point that we have done a cost analysis for the past 3 years. In 2023, we had taken over the Bullard Building, so we anticipated a larger increase in our utility expenses, which we haven't seen. We also do a very good job of managing our output.
Okay. Okay, major accomplishments.
Okay, so we have recently conducted a master plan study, and one of the things that the seniors in town were looking for was innovative programs and possibly extending our hours. So we wrote a grant, we actually wrote a few grants, and one of them is called Thrive Dartmouth. We received a $10,000 grant this year from MCOA to develop and promote an initiative that aims to promote healthy living by sharing values on how to eat well, move naturally, unwind intentionally, and build meaningful connections with others. Thrive Dartmouth is designed to support the active older adult of all backgrounds in leading a fulfilling life that enhances their physical, mental, and emotional well-being. By promoting evidence-based lifestyle changes, we hope to help individuals prevent chronic disease, enhance their quality of life, and positively impact the community. This program is offered the first Thursday of every month in the evening, as well on quarterly Saturdays. We also received an $8,700 grant from MCOA to establish a program which engaged individuals from our vast multicultural community by providing monthly culturally diverse meals and educational programming combined during a lunch service. The objectives were to help combat isolation and loneliness and to continue to promote the socialization, health, and well-being of our seniors. We hope to build upon this and strengthen our current lunch program in order to increase attendance and produce and deliver more ethnically diverse product.
So I have, oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
go ahead. No, you
sorry.
can, go ahead.
When you say you wrote the grant, did you go through the town administration, or did you guys actually write
The
the grant?
MCOA grants, I wrote the grant, passed it by Mr. Vitale, and so we submitted it together, but we did the work on our end.
Thanks.
Yeah. And now give me 1 second, because that was my page. Okay. We also, this year, had received a $15,000 grant from MCOA. I'm saying this year, maybe a year and a half, from MCOA to assist with the funding of our master plan for the Dartmouth Council on Aging and our Maria Connor Center for Active Living. This plan explored future expansion goals and reevaluated current uses and other facility improvement concerns. The master plan assessed the building condition and layouts, is going to assist us in developing a long-term program, and will provide prioritized scope recommendations, including associated costs. We're actually still in, the plan has been completed, and now we are waiting on the RFQs to go out for somebody to come in. So I don't quite have the cost on that yet. Over the cost of a 3-structured program, we're talking millions of dollars, but I don't have.
Can you say that lower?
No, I won't. One of the concerns is our building large enough, to accompany our needs? They did determine that we have a fantastic building. We have a wonderful program. We're just looking, where can we do better? So there may be a lot of not structural changes, but within how we manage our rooms.
Okay, Janine?
Is the master plan a public document that's available to see?
Sure, yes.
Is it on website
It
somewhere?
is. It has not been posted anywhere, but it absolutely can.
It's not the master plan? It's not part of the master plan?
It's not part of the town's
Okay,
master plan. It
okay,
was
that's
strictly our
interesting.
plan.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this year, we also received a $10,000 grant from ARAW, which is the Association for the Relief of Aged Women. We have partnered with them often in the past, and this enables us to expand our programming and services and better support low-income older women in the community.
Did you say Asian woman?
Yes, aging.
Oh, aging, I was going to say.
Aging. Sorry.
I was going to say, boy, that's,
Low income.
okay, that's a little discrimination, but okay.
It's over the age of
Okay, aging.
70.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Okay. Oh,
That's true. How come it says women, not men?
It is strictly for women.
Oh, it is for women,
Yes.
okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
they were,
asked?
I believe they've been they've been around for about 100 years, and it started with Fishermen's Widows. They had put together a fund to support low-income women, so it is strictly for women. This year, they've changed their philanthropical agenda, so it has allowed us to use that for programming, which we don't, men are more than welcome to join the programs that we put out, but we do use that funding to support that.
anything else on grants? It's great to see these grants.
I agree.
It's great to see these grants, so congratulations on that. And even though the master plan isn't part of the master plan, a lot of times, people prepare master plans, and they put them on the bookshelf, and you never see it, and it's good to see that, you're citing it here a couple of times, so.
Sure, we're trying. We're trying.
Okay, participation of the Council of Aging?
Okay, so this year we had, last fiscal, we had over 3,800 unduplicated elders participating in our programs, which means one each individual person, either participated in our programs or took advantage of our services. We had 29,990 swipes at the kiosk, which means 29,000 times was somebody standing in front of our receptionist.
So, excuse me, so you have to sign in with a card or something?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, it's a little scan card, and that's how we track all of our data.
Okay.
More than 33% of Dartmouth residents are 60 and over. We've been listening to what our residents are asking for and shaping our programs to meet their needs. In addition to the nutrition program, caregiver support, and community resource support we provide assistance in obtaining fuel assistance, SNAP benefits, which are food stamps, transportation, housing, and other needs to enable people to remain safely and independently in their homes. We're growing, expanding, and diversifying what we do and who we serve.
Okay, let's talk about the,
Okay.
okay, let's talk about new budget summary year.
Okay. So our budget request will reflect the contractual obligations, union obligations, as well as a request for additional staffing. Expenses have been level funded, or we tried to reduce. In speaking with our Finance Committee liaison, he had suggested, because we were asking for a small increase in staffing, we look at our expenses, which is why we really took a good hard look at our utility costs. So you have the worksheet in front of you. Our request is to hire a full-time receptionist to replace 2 part-time positions. I put it down as a grade 1. Obviously, right now, it's not a union position because they're part-time positions. The receptionist position, it's one of the most vital roles that we have at the center. The receptionist can ensure that all calls are answered promptly and professionally, which creates a positive first impression for community members. The initial interaction sets the tone for the entire communication experience, and a skilled receptionist can make our members feel welcome and valued. Additionally, the receptionist efficiently forwards calls to the appropriate department or individual, reducing hold times and ensuring that inquiries are addressed in a timely manner. This level of organization and responsiveness is crucial in a busy setting like the Council on Aging, where community members may have urgent needs or important questions. Furthermore, a receptionist can also assist with scheduling appointments, managing walk-in inquiries, and providing basic information about the services offered by the COA, enhancing overall accessibility and customer service. In essence, the role of receptionist is pivotal in streamlining communication, fostering positive relations with community members, and maintaining the efficiency of operations. Considering the evolving role of the receptionist with increased clerical responsibilities, having a full-time receptionist will offer continuity, efficiency, and streamlined communication. In this integrated position, having a dedicated individual focused on the role will lead to a more effective support of our operations. The increase in the salary would be approximately $7,775,000 plus the benefits. The COA would like to discuss using monies from our revolving account at a different time to offset the cost. We are also requesting to increase our outreach coordinator position from 35 to 40 hours. This position has seen a 25% increase, and I really only looked at the last year, but I can say for the past 2 years, we have definitely increased 25% each year. We're booking our appointments months in advance at this point, and it's evident that the current staffing level is not sufficient to meet the growing demands of the community effectively. Additionally, the projected 36% increase in the aging population over the next 10 years, and I'm sorry, I think that's 20%.
The projected
The
numbers?
projected increase, and actually, that was one of the,
I was gonna ask you where you got that number.
requested, that was requested at our prior meeting, and no matter how organized I get, I have a handout for you all. But of course, it's never right at my fingertips, so give me 1 second here. So this is a printout of the demographics for from the 2010 census, the 2020 census, and the 2030 census.
just be careful.
Yeah, there's wires all over.
Thank you.
Is the projected number from the census, Amy?
This is from, yes, this is from the federal census.
Oh, okay.
And so you will know that from the ages of 45 to 54, we actually see a decrease of 21%. 55 to 64, we see a decrease in 9%. But ages 65 to 74 in the next, this was 10 years, but so we're saying the next 7 years, there's a 15% increase, and 75 and over is a 7.5% increase. So the population is still aging.
So can you comment on what the outreach coordinator does?
I absolutely can. So going back to what we had just kind of discussed, the services that we can provide. I just want to make sure that I'm telling you everything. Well, not to keep you waiting, but, so our outreach coordinator can assist people with any concerns that they may have if they need assistance with applications such as fuel assistance, SNAP benefits. Right now, we're seeing a major increase in people in need of housing. So we provide the resources. We do some case management as some people need a little more guidance through the process. And I will say that our outreach coordinator that we have now has been phenomenal with working with the other agencies that provide these services for people.
So the scenario would be somebody calls in and needs services, and this person tries to find them the services, gets back to them, and tries
Correct.
to hook them up with. whoever
Correct.
needs
So
to-
I would say he probably meets with them at least 2 to 3 times before sending them on their way. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have an idea of the split? Because I realize you're open to other towns.
Correct, yes.
Besides Dartmouth. Do you know what the split is?
For outreach,
As far as Dartmouth versus New Bedford and whoever else
or the
takes
people coming
advantage? Correct.
into our program, sure. I would say we are probably 75% Dartmouth residents as far as our programming goes. Our services, we try to refer people that are out of town to their respective council on agings. There are many times that they come back to us because, again, the outreach coordinator we have is very good at his job. Where we offer assistance filling out SNAP applications, that's one of the things we'll see later in this program, that we are a SNAP provider. So we get reimbursed for each SNAP application that we do. So that we do not, we'll take in anybody from out of town. As far as our programs, we give Dartmouth residents the first 5 days to register for our programs, and then we open it up to out of town.
Thank you.
Do you have any idea how many people interact with the outreach coordinator on an annual basis?
I do. He, so as of right now, he is there, say he has 6 hours, so he's meeting with 6 people per day. In 2011, I was the part-time outreach coordinator, which was, it was a grant-based position, and it was part-time, and I had plenty of time to do what needed to be done. At this moment, he's booking 3 to 4 weeks out.
Yeah, I think one thing we look for is value in this, getting people the.
And so
those
there
benefits.
is, again, I just don't want to be giving you the wrong numbers, but I do have a breakdown, it may be towards the end, let's see, in our indication of productivity, let's see.
Yeah, that's all that.
So this past year, our outreach, I'm going to say outreach team, but he assisted with 361 SNAP applications, 1,620 appointments for health benefits, which is part of our, a SHINE, which is serving the health insurance needs of everyone. We do have another volunteer SHINE representative that, that she works out of our building as well. He had 599 outreach or advocacy, unduplicated, so he met with 599 people. Duplicated 1,739. His total phone call volume was 2,470.
And I just want to make note too, my point wasn't to question his, what he does, it was just to say
Oh,
that I think
absolutely,
I think
of
he
course.
adds great value.
Of course.
These are necessary services that are saving community members money or getting funds from other places when a lot of them, or most of them are probably on a fixed income. So I think it's a
Yes.
great idea
Yes.
to increase the hours of the position.
Thank you. And this program, this position is currently a non-union position. So I do feel at this time, it would be great if we could, go from the 35 to 40 hours. To me, it's an easy fix to add a few hours to our outreach team. If you asked me, what are one of the necessities, I would say we need another outreach worker. But for now, we'll request the 5 hours.
And then where you were initially that position as a grant-funded position, is there a way, or I'm sure there's a grant out there, is a way to write a grant to try to get another part-time person, or will they not fund it because we have a full-time?
So we have actually, the grant sources that we used to use no longer support salary.
Okay.
So we use our grant, we try to use town funding for salaries, and then all of our grant funds we use for programs.
Sure. Thank you.
And if I may, while we're talking about indications of productivity, and this kind of goes back to the receptionist as well, we have a medical equipment loan program, and last year we loaned out 3,253 pieces of equipment, and that all goes directly through our front desk. We provide transportation services. Currently, the assistant director is our transportation scheduler, and we provided 2,816 rides last fiscal year. And we've also increased our social media following to 1.6 thousand.
Who writes the newsletter?
And our program coordinator, along with, we have a contract, we contract it out. So we pay an additional small stipend out of our formula grant for the person who assists. I also, at the end, I will give you a copy of our newsletters.
What sort of equipment do you lend out?
What's that?
What sort of equipment do you lend out?
We have walkers, canes, transfer benches, wheelchairs, crutches. It's all donations. People donate to us, and we loan it out. So we get a lot of calls daily. The receptionist fields about 75 to 80 calls per day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's busy. It's a busy, vibrant center, and I know I work there, but I can't say enough about it because it's just a fantastic place. The services that it provides and the level of service that the town allows us to provide is exceptional.
Okay, any more questions on that? Next item is the major goals.
Okay.
What are your major goals?
So our major goals: to design, promote, and implement needed services, to provide a safe and welcoming place to meet with others, to promote health and wellness, to provide social support, ensure access to services, and empower independence. With the support from the town budget for our operating expenses, the COA is able to utilize the state formula grant to offer programs to the community at a highly subsidized rate. This support allows for exciting possibilities for extending programming and offering occasional night and weekend offerings. With the increased funding, the COA will have the resources to develop a wider range of programs tailored to the diverse interests of the senior community. By introducing evening and weekend classes, seniors who may have daytime commitments can participate and benefit from the offerings. This extended schedule ensures that more seniors will engage in activities that align with their hobbies and passions, fostering a sense of community and social connection among older adults. The COA is committed to creating a vibrant and dynamic environment that caters to a variety of interests, promoting overall well-being and an active lifestyle.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Would it be safe to say that you know you're being successful and efficient and effective because your indications of productivity are going up?
Yes,
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank
yes.
you. And therefore, you're meeting your goals as you state them?
Yes.
Okay.
So our future goals would be to improve communication upon initial contact with community members, to enhance the members' experience at the Council on Aging, to efficiently disseminate information, to facilitate access to services, and to identify the needs of the community's population and the available resources. And also to provide referrals, advocacy, case management, and application assistance for publicly funded programs, elder abuse, health insurance, and conduct home visits as needed. So our future goals are just to expand on the goals that we've already been working towards.
Okay, Janine?
Not to put you on the spot, but as an example, how would you go about enhancing the members' experience?
I don't know, it's pretty great already. You know, I think that the team that we have is extremely knowledgeable, first and foremost, but they're also very welcoming. When you walk into the center, it feels like you're coming home. And while I'm talking, I also want to, you know, point out that we keep saying senior or elder. 55 is when we start to become, you know, the senior. We get our AARP cards, they start coming in at 50. So we're not talking, you know, we're trying to change the narrative of what it means to grow older and age in a very, you know, exciting, in an exciting way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, one area you might consider future goals, and I'm not sure.
Sure.
Maybe you are addressing this, but today there are so many scams, and there's a part of me that the Council of Aging may have like a program where people can say, oh, this happened to me, is this a scam?
So the DA's office has a scam hotline or whatnot. So we do offer presentations often. We do receive phone calls from people saying, hey, you know, is this a scam? So we try to keep up to date with all the scams. Unfortunately, there are a lot of them. But we do work with the DA's office to provide information.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, Bob, I was thinking about that during this presentation. One time, my grandfather sent $5,000 to Canada because I was in jail.
Yes.
And I
Oh,
wasn't in
God.
Canada, and thankfully I wasn't in jail. He was able to get it back, but it just,
And
they
he's lucky
never.
because usually you can't.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing, and I myself received text messages from Easy Pass from the state of
Oh, yeah,
Massachusetts.
That's a common one.
Yeah, yeah.
My phone, as
Yes,
a matter of fact.
yes. It's amazing what these hackers are getting
Yeah,
into.
I just got one that somebody bought Coinbase with my PayPal account, and I went into the account, and nothing had been hit, but it, you know, it gave you like a link, so once you get into that link, that's it. So-
And you can see why somebody would kind of go down that rabbit hole. It's easy, it looks legitimate.
Yeah.
So we tell people, you know, most state funds, so they're not going to call you over the phone, you're going to receive a letter, and never say, yes, is this so-and-so?
Yep, I got you.
This is I, rather than yes, because once they have that yes,
This afternoon?
they can then, you know,
I don't
attach
want to
it to
repeat what
something
I
else.
say to some of the ones that call me.
It's awful.
Okay. So where do we leave off? I'm sorry.
Okay, so we are at department statements, which,
Yeah, okay, that's your organization. So you have a director, you're the director, you have assistant director.
yes, we do.
A program coordinator, and an outreach engagement coordinator, and those are all full-time. And then
Yes,
you have the two part-time positions for the receptionist, and 5 drivers.
yes,
And the town of Dartmouth is providing you with custodians.
correct.
Which is good and bad, right? And what's this cost reduction projects, what's that mean?
That was non-applicable.
Okay,
That was your number 6.
okay.
And then the revenue generating opportunities, as I said before, we are a SNAP provider, which is through the Department of Transitional Assistance, so it's DTA Connect. When an eligible organization becomes a contracted SNAP outreach partner, we're eligible for 50% of the federal reimbursement for allowable outreach costs. We assist in the application and recertification of SNAP benefits and to access SNAP eligibility information. Our projected revenue for this program is between $5,000 and $8,000 per year. My initial thoughts when we first started the program, we're in our second year, was that it may not be a sustainable way to generate revenue, because once everybody was on, was receiving the benefits, they wouldn't need the assistance. But it has definitely been continual, and as people age and the way that the world is going right now with finances, we're seeing more people become eligible. And that is one of the things when our outreach coordinator meets with somebody for the first time, we have a checklist of what we ask for to make sure that they're receiving all the benefits they're entitled to, and this program is one of them.
But the requirements keep on changing, right?
They do, they
Yeah.
change. They've raised the income guidelines, but unfortunately, they did not increase the amount of funds that they had. So sometimes people are seeing a reduction in what they receive because they have to spread it out over more people.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And I should have people, one of the questions that people ask all the time is, will what's going on in the government affect us? It has not affected us directly, but it does affect the people that we serve, obviously. Okay, so transportation services. We currently provide transportation to Dartmouth seniors free of charge. We do accept donations, which are deposited into a gift account. In the future, if needed, we could charge a small fee for transportation if there was a need to generate more income. Our projected revenue on donations alone is approximately $5,000. No, I'm sorry, that's not on donations. Our projected revenue would be approximately $5,000 per year based on $2 each way. So a $4 trip to the doctors. We've been very fortunate right now that we have not needed to charge. We do have many generous people who do make the donations. But that's where we stand with that.
Okay.
And then grant opportunities. We will continue to apply for and utilize all grant opportunities. MCOA, which is Massachusetts Council on Aging, they offer SIG funding, which is service incentive grants, which is where I received the grants that I had spoke about previously. We also have the formula grant, which is state funding based on that census. This year, it was $15 per senior over the age of 60. So that's based on 9,793 seniors in the town of Dartmouth.
So that is based on the number of people who have cards? Or is
No,
it's
that
just
is based on the number of
people-
Dartmach residents.
Okay,
Over
based on
the
the.
age of 60.
Okay.
Yes, and that's where, people get confused that, well, we scan in, we're scanning in, that's helping, that's where you get the money from. The scans allow us to give you the information and show where we're being productive. The state formula grant is based off of the federal census.
Okay,
Through that formula grant, we use approximately $60,000 to employ 5 part-time drivers. Our transportation is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. for essential appointments such as doctor's visits, ride to the pharmacy, the bank, grocery stores, and to the center. We have what we call a lunch bus that goes Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. We pick people up in the morning, bring them back to the center. They can take part in whatever activities are available that day. They stay for lunch and they go home at noon.
okay. And in addition to the town budget?
In addition, so I just said that.
I'm
the
sorry.
state,
Okay.
no, I'm talking to myself, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the COA receives the state funding. We also have a Title III grant, which is federal funding, and that funnels through Coastline Elderly Services. That it's $8,000 and helps subsidize the rising cost of our drivers.
So could you get more grants if you had more support, or is you just about maxed out?
I'm sure there are definitely grants out there that I'm not aware of. We have some fantastic instructors within our center as well, and they have brought grant opportunities to me. One of the things that's not on here because it's new, we received a $2,000 grant from the American Parkinson's Disease Association, and that will go to offset the cost paid directly to one of the instructors to provide, she does a chair yoga for Parkinson's disease. So they're very small grants, small in money, but extremely valuable, but also small, semi-easy to write. So when people bring a grant to my attention, we apply for it.
Any large ones out there?
I don't know. Back in maybe 2017, with the help of Deb Molina-Wender and the prior town administrator, David Cressman, we embarked on the journey to become an age-friendly community, and that is through AARP, which we have the designation, so we may be eligible for grants through there for the Council on Aging, as well as the community itself.
What other benefits are there to be designated as an age-friendly community besides the opportunity for grants? Is there something else?
Really, I think the opportunity for grants. When we were going through the process, it was very much hyped up at the time. I don't see much, chatter about it anymore. I think it's important to follow your age-friendly community status as far as offering the program services. And it doesn't just mean the Council on Aging. It looked at accessible bike paths, accessible trails in the town of Dartmouth, which I think the town is doing a good job making everything accessible anyway. So it's kind of something we just have in our pocket at this moment.
Okay, anybody else have any questions before we kind of look at this budget here? Okay, if you open up the page on the budget, the bottom line, the revised budget for 2025 was 418,000, and you're asking for 429, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And your salaries are going from 318 to 339, and that incorporates the request that you put in here, right? And your electricity, one of the reasons your budget is below is 2.6 is the electricity and natural gas decrease, which is pretty significant, and everything else is level funded.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions on that before I keep on going? Okay. One of the themes this year is looking at actuals, and I can tell by your presentation that you look at your actuals, and one of the things we're saying is every year we talk about budget, but what are the actuals? Because if you don't understand the actuals, you really can't put together a good budget. So you did a good job on the operating expenses here because you got a 2022, 23, 24, but I would have liked to seen the salaries there too. You see what I'm saying?
We can,
I mean, you got it in, you got it,
we can drop the salaries in there. We just-
yeah, I think yeah, just because you got the 2024 actual, and, but that's the only actual you have for the
You've
salaries.
got that in Excel, right? Yeah, okay, we
Yeah.
can just drop the.
So I just like to see that. Basically, if you could follow up with that,
Yeah.
at the end, because I.
And that's, you want 2022?
Yeah, just like you have Council on Aging, same format, 2022, 2023, 2024.
Okay.
That way there, we know, we can see the trend. Because one of the things we're trying to figure out is what is the, we keep on talking about, the town being under stress financially, but you can't go by budgets, because budgets, just, increase a certain amount every year. And really, what's different between a company and the town, and this is Massachusetts law, is the budget really represents the maximum you can spend. That's really what it comes down to. So a lot of departments come under budget, so, that's the only thing I would add. But I would just say that, very, excellent presentation. You did a very, very good job. You're obviously a very good manager and have everything under control. And I'd just like to add that, and I've said this before, that any organization, whether it be a company or government or whatever, the effectiveness of that organization is based on how it relates to and adapts to changes in its customers. And the town of Dartmouth population is aging, so I think there has to be some type of increased requirements to help the aging population. Again, obviously, when you look at the aging, I mean, that's an excellent presentation on, where we're going as far as the aging population. And I think the town of Dartmouth really should look more into funding more of these programs to going forward. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that, or Terry, do you have anything, or? No?
No, sir.
Okay,
Are you with there?
that's it. You're done,
She was
thanks.
looking over your shoulder.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you.
Thanks.
And I will get
Yeah.
that
You
information
send
to
it,
you.
and I'll distribute it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, liaison reports?
You want to go over the calendar for the next?
Oh, okay, you can go over the calendar.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me,
the
Bob.
next- the-
Yeah. Terry?
Just one question on, and this is a question really for Gary. When Mark did his presentation and talked about the need for administrative support, the examples that he gave seemed to me to be issues of boundary setting and kind of, when he talks about a need to have time to write, a need to not have interruptions. I wondered if there's any way, and Gary, you don't have to answer this right now, but I just wonder if there's any way to bring forces together to allow that to be set up. I didn't hear from Mark that there was any real technical expertise needed, and I know that we're trying to avoid hiring new staff, so I would ask if you could think about that and let us know at the next meeting.
Yeah, so just a little, just a comment on the conservation. What we did about maybe 3 months now, we hired a floater, which works in the collector's office, the accounting office, and was really supposed to be a financial floater. But Mark at the time needed assistance, so we've made it, available to Mark. So he's used 17 and a half hours on average, sometimes 12 hours when the collector gets busy. So, I mean, it doesn't really address the fact that he would need potentially a full-time individual. But I think it's to take a little bit of the burden off of what he did. But we can take a look at other alternatives throughout the process.
Because I can understand him needing to close the door sometimes and work on the technical pieces of his job. And you would not want the office closed, but it would be good to have somebody to say, he's engaged in something else right now. Can he get back to you? What is, to take a message, et cetera.
Yeah, logistically, we've moved that individual out front so that she's the front line. So when they do come in, that's who they see first. That's who they see first. And if there's an
Okay.
issue with anything, they contact Mark. So
Okay,
We've done that.
thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, as far as the remaining schedule for, well, we're in March now, not remaining, but beginning schedule. On 3/6, we have the schools.
Yep.
And only the schools. That will probably take the entire time. And then on 3/13, I plan on presenting a draft of the Schedule A to the
Okay.
committee. I know Brian has been putting together a list of some items that he's thought about throughout the course of these processes and the one-on-ones. Maybe we should include that in one of the, just for discussion purposes, one of the meetings, probably maybe on the 3/13 meeting.
So just like a summary of
Yeah.
issues that have been identified.
I've been keeping track of them, so.
Yeah, well, I have too, but,
Yeah.
I mean, so, and then decide what to do about them going forward.
Yeah, at least for discussion purposes. Also, I know that the select board has indicated that they may want to have a meeting between now and a separate meeting from their regularly scheduled meeting to discuss the budget. So that may be something that the committee wants to think about.
Do you
Is
mean a
that-
joint meeting?
A joint meeting, but not included in their regular scheduled meeting, a separate meeting. So it would be maybe
But-
the following Monday, or we'd have to think about a date.
But it's just us,
Common and-
just us?
Correct,
and-
yeah.
and
There was discussion on Monday
So,
night to
I
maybe have a
I got nothing
meeting.
against that, but if they're gonna ask for a meeting, I'd like to know, like, an agenda of what they want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll have an agenda.
Specific, though.
So it's not including the school committee, it's just us and the
Yes,
select board? Okay, okay, yeah,
So-
I'm cool with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll talk about that further, I guess, with them.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say, seems like for years we've level funded a lot of these departments, and now, we're starting to see some really push, and they're making some good points on certain things.
Yeah, you're gonna start to see a
And-
lot of it in the utility costs. You've seen that through.
Yeah.
Just, and to level fund the budget with utilities when it's now skyrocketing, some budgets can support it, some budgets can't. And I think to be as much, as transparent as we can be, they're actually putting in what the utility costs are
Yeah.
now. And
But even like asphalt costs and,
everything's-
salt costs, I
everything's-
mean, there's not much you can do because that's national or at least local. And so I'm really interested in how that whole schedule is going to come together. How about New Bedford Volk? How are they doing in there?
I've got all the assessments in, relatively small increase
Okay,
for Voc.
okay. Okay. Before we hit liaison report, Terry, we all got your package?
Yeah.
But it's 2 years old, right? Is there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind people, and that's why the attachment was 2023, and Gary did ask me for it, but I couldn't send it via email because it was too big.
Too big, okay.
We
Plus
had it
was
printed
dated,
out,
But I
Terry.
wanted to remind people of the questions that they already asked, so we're not repeating that. That's what came up before. Some of the answers still hold.
Okay. All right, any liaison reports, or anybody? Okay. So, I'd like to talk about school choice funding. And I'm going to tell you what I think, because the schools are coming up next week. And I appreciate any feedback to tell me if I'm wrong, if they disagree. But, there's an article, letter to the editor, talking about using non-recurring funds to make the school budget. And so, just so everybody's on the same level, school choice, once a year, they vote on school choice, and it's just for the high school. And at least last year, 13.3% of the students were school choice students. And the state mandates that if a school choice student comes into Dartmouth, they get $5,000. And we're approaching $19,000, $20,000 per student. And that $5,000 has been in effect for decades. So they don't make any adjustment for inflation. It's just $5,000. And so it's been my feeling that the $5,000 doesn't cover the cost of these new students. coming in. Now, that's debatable, and there is a way to calculate it, but when I've asked, that calculation hasn't been done. I'm fairly well-versed in looking at, comes down to fixed and variable costs. And, you know, because of my position as a chief financial officer, for years, I've done those calculations. And just to give you an example, you know, the board of directors, you know, you set a budget, and in the budget, you have, you know, you approve a budget, and you can go forward. And so then the questions come back, well, if sales increase 10%, you know, what is it gonna, you know, what's the financial statements gonna look like? And when you do that, you look at your variable costs for the additional sales, and you don't change your fixed cost. So and vice versa, you know, the board of directors may ask you, say, okay, if sales are gonna be down 20%, what's our financial situation gonna be? And then again, your fixed costs don't change, but sometimes you have to change those fixed costs on a 20% decrease, but, you know, what are your variable costs and things like that? So, so based on $5,000, that's assumed that the variable the variable costs are, you know, like 25%. It comes out to about 25%. Now, I probably would be more in favor of school choice if it was like $10,000, because there are fixed costs that, you know, you don't have to have another principal, you don't have to have more heat and things like that. But I just think the number's too low. So that's that's kind of my argument on school choice. But the point I want to make tonight is, in the past, the school department has taken the $5,000 that they get for these students and has set that money aside, okay? And what I think that it should be their policy, and we can't tell them what their policy is, but their policy should be that matching income and expense. We have these, I think it's about 130 students. If we're getting $5,000 per student in that year, then that money should be applied to that particular year. Basically, you're matching income and expense. And so now, and the reason I bring this up is because now they're saying, okay, now we're going to use school choice money so we can make the budget numbers in the next 2 years. And as far as I'm concerned, that money should have been instead of been set aside, they set it aside, and now they're applying it to these particular years. And that makes it very hard to figure out what their actual costs are. In other words, what the school is spending. And so I sent an email to the superintendent and to Jim Kiley, the assistant superintendent, and asked them some of these questions that are coming forward. I also asked them for actuals going back to 2022, so we can kind of get a feel. But you know, the term using one-time funds to fill in the gap between the budget and their actual spending is kind of a misnomer, because it's in the past what we've done is we've paid for the education of 100, and this is a fact. If we got the money and we set it aside for these students, then we've educated 130 students at the taxpayer expense, and we set that money aside, and it wasn't applied in the same year that the students attended the class. So that said, I want to open it up to anybody who says I'm wrong or.
Okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
Couple things. Can we talk about this even though it's not listed on the agenda?
Yeah, items unknown for 48 hours in advance.
well, it's really an item that's been known, but I'll wade in. I think there are several layers to what you talked about tonight that need to be taken in order. So the first layer is school choice came about in 1993 as part of a settlement between the cities of Brockton, Worcester, and I think it was Holliston or another H town, against a lawsuit that was brought by students in these towns to say it's not fair that we don't get the same education as other kids in Massachusetts, based on where we live. It's not, the solution was really only a partial solution, but one of the things that the legislature came up with was, let's give kids an opportunity to enroll in another town if the school committee of that town agrees. It was never set up as a reimbursement program. Not from, because what you're saying makes logical sense if it was set up as a reimbursement program. So the circuit breaker, for example, is a grant program that is reimbursement, and it's based on actual costs. This was never set up this way. This was an arbitrary amount that was set up. And the reason that school committees agree with it sometimes is that their thought process is that these are classes that we're already offering. They're not fully enrolled. Why not make some openings for some students to join in the class without adding expenses for that student? You could make the argument that it costs the same to educate them as it does the students who are enrolled, who are residents in Dartmouth. That number that they come up with is really, it's kind of an average number. It doesn't really reflect the cost to educate all of the students. So that's one piece of it. The piece about one-time expenses. So the school district gets between $650,000 and $700,000 per year for students through school choice program. Before COVID, they were spending that money for one-time expenses. So for example, the computer lab. There were some other expenses that they used this money for. When the money came, just like for the town got a lot of money from the federal government because of COVID, through the Trump administration and the Biden administration. And that money was used for things that otherwise Dartmouth residents would be paying for. It was, you know what it's been spent on. And the school committee also got additional funds to provide services mainly related to kids who were backsliding because of COVID. While they spent that money, they kept the money they were receiving in school choice in that account and did not spend that. I'm trying to think if that addresses all of the points that you're making. I understand that you disagree, Bob, with the $5,000 reimbursement. I'm just trying to explain why the school committee thinks it's a good idea. In Mattapoisett, for example, they're a pre-K through 6 school district. They provide school choice in grades 1 and 2 because that's where they had room. They had classes that were being offered, but they weren't fully enrolled. And other school committees make different choices. In Dartmouth, the thought process is it allows the high school to offer classes that they'd probably otherwise have to not provide because they did not have the enrollment to support that. And I think I would also say that in terms of school choice, you said that you emailed Dr. Saber-Maguire and Mr. Kiley with your questions. So I think we should give them an opportunity to respond to those questions.
Yeah, my question wasn't so much for school choice. It was just to remind them of what Gary said in his department meeting about the actuals. It was more along the lines of that. But,
So in terms of one-time expenses, it's true of any grant money that we get as a town or as a school district.
Yep.
Because we can't count on that money every year, it's suggested that we not use that to pay for ongoing expenses. And a salary is an ongoing expense. And unfortunately, because the school district is underfunded, they are paying salaries right now with that money. So it will run out. It will not be there in a couple of
okay.
years.
Janine, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I have a question for Terry, actually. You brought up a good point that I didn't really know. So when school choice was voted in, I didn't realize that you could choose the grades where you wanted to include the additional students. So that's one thing, I didn't know that.
Right, school committees can say no, or they can say yes, or they can say yes to certain, you
Okay,
know.
and can
grade
they
levels.
vote again to change it? I'm just curious.
They can. I think once you make a commitment to students, so say there's a ninth grader who comes in, they can't just say, okay, you're a sophomore now, we're not going to do grade 10, see you later. There's a focus on the student, and there needs to be a commitment to continue that process.
Yeah.
But yeah, at some point, for example, they may find that in grade 3, they have a very small cohort, and they're probably going to have to offer only 3 classes at that grade level. They could determine that they could offer, you know, some openings there and make the decision to do so.
I mean, I'm not opposed to school choice. I think it's great that they have a way to bring in money, and they've certainly, you know, we may disagree on how it's used, but that's not our call. And it's great that they have it, and they've used it the best they can at this point in time. I don't believe it relates to what the cost is of a student to be educated, you know, the cost per pupil number that we have in a chart somewhere. I don't believe it relates that way. And the $5,000 is not set by the town of Dartmouth, so
Yeah, well,
we
$5,000,
can't control that.
$5,000 in 1993 is not $5,000.
You'll have to take it to the state
say-
level, Bob.
Well, I know, well, I've already talked to Marky about it. But, you know, one of the other things they say is that the best indication of the outcome of a student is the student-to-teacher ratio. And by throwing 13.3% of the students into the high school, then that by definition deteriorates the education of the Dartmouth school kids. But my major, you know, the school committee already voted on it, and, but my major concern is, I don't think it's one-time money. I think it's, if you bring in 100 students, you get $500,000. If you bring in 50 students, you get $750,000. So if you get that money should be spent on things in that year that the student attends, because if you decide not to do it, not to have those students the following year, then you don't get the money. So there's a direct relationship to the money and to the number of students you're educating. And when I went before the school committee in their public comment period, I brought the point that, I recommended that they phase out school choice. And basically, they have 40 students per class in high school. So I said, you can't throw these kids out that you've given, so that, you stop the freshman year, and that way you would phase out of it, but they're not interested in it. Anybody else have any
Well, I
comments on
just
that?
wanted to say one more thing about the example. I am not financial, that it's not been my professional life. So I'm sure that you know more about that than me. But what I do think is different about what you said in terms of actuals is that municipalities do not operate that way. First of all, they don't provide things that can be counted and measured in the same way. And it's pretty much a people business across the board. It's residents, it's students, it's, elders, and it's the town of Dartmouth has always budgeted for capital expense by over budgeting, pretty much. And so that money gets turned back, but the school district doesn't operate that way. The school district doesn't over budget. They've been budgeting for what they need right up front. So,
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. But I guess when you look at the combination of expending money to educate students, taking the money, sending it aside, and then they prepay, I think they prepaid $700,000 last year, then it's hard to figure out what the spending trend is.
you mean the
So-
spending trend for schools' choice students? or-
No, just spending trend in general, just
Oh,
spending
okay.
trend. That's kind of what I want to get to the bottom of the, with the school choice aside, what their spending trend is over the last, 2022, 2023, 2024, and take it from there. All right, anything else? Anybody else have anything? Okay.
Further, yeah.
All right. Somebody want to, I have to take a roll call for the adjournment. So somebody want
Minutes,
to,
we have minutes.
oh, yeah, minutes. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, minutes.
Somewhere. We have minutes.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 20th.
Okay, so Janine made a motion to approve,
I second that.
second by Brian. Okay, so
There's a
so
correction.
roll
that
call.
needs-
What's that?
Oh, there's a correction that needs to be made.
Okay,
On the page that talks about the, a list of suggested questions, it should say, suggested should be taken out. Let me see if I can find it here. You got me so worked up about the school choice thing.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so on the last page, Ms. Ham distributed, I would suggest taking out suggested, because it's not suggested questions. Ms. Ham distributed
Oh, right.
questions that have been asked in the past, or asked and answered in the past. See what I mean? Elizabeth
Yes.
will know what I
Right.
mean when she hears this, but that would be the correction. So if that correction can be made, then I would vote yes.
Okay, well, we have a motion on the floor, so we have to withdraw the motion.
I make a motion to approve the February 20th
Oh, we gotta
meeting
withdraw the-
minutes with, I make a motion to approve the motion.
No, we gotta withdraw the motion
I
first, right?
withdraw the motion.
You withdraw the motion, right? All right, so you want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Withdrawal? Okay, so, okay. So we have to actually vote on that. So
Okay.
roll call to withdraw the original motion. So I have to do a roll call. So Terry?
Yes.
Bill? Abstain. Abstain, okay. All right, so Phil abstained. Bob, yes.
Janine, yes.
Brian, yes.
Patrick, yes, okay. So now, somebody want to make a motion?
I make a
Motion
motion
to
to approve the
approve.
February 20th meeting minutes with the changes suggested by Terry Ham.
Changing
I'll
the,
second that.
I'm sorry, with the changes requested by Terry Ham.
I
So-
second that.
so what's the wording change? We're gonna
Delete suggested,
omit suggested, okay.
delete suggested, and then add, ask questions that have been asked and answered in previous years.
Okay. All right, so you made the motion?
I did,
Okay.
Brian
I
seconded
seconded
it.
Right, Brian seconded, okay. So roll call, Terry?
Yes.
Phil? Abstain. Bob, yes?
Janine, yes.
Brian, yes.
Patrick, yes.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, so that's done. Okay, so we want to make a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Okay, so Brian made a motion to adjourn, second by Phil. Terry?
Yes?
Phil? Yes. Bob, yes.
Janine, yes.
Yes, yes.
Patrick, yes.
Patrick, yes.
Adjourned.
He gets to hit the gavel.